Hello everyone, I'm Tim from Tim's PC and I build custom PCs to suit anyone's needs or budget. I also live stream my builds and repairs for transparency and educational purposes. So if you would like to get an awesome new PC and you'd like to see it get put together live, send me a message today. Alrighty, so tonight we're going to be building Jono's PC. So Jono came to me wanting an awesome gaming PC and, you know, I put one together for him. So let's get right into the components here tonight. So we went with the powerhouse of gaming CPUs, the Ryzen 5600X. So like I call it the powerhouse because essentially as far as gaming is concerned, this little CPU performs roughly on par with the most expensive 5950X version. You're essentially paying for cores with AMD Ryzen 5000 series. The gaming performance pretty much scales with these CPUs being pretty much any game you run, you're going to be graphics card bottlenecked, not CPU bottlenecked. So the main difference between these CPUs when you buy them is just the core count. You can count on the fact that all of them are going to give you excellent gaming performance. So at $550, these 5600X CPUs are the best way to go. So if you've got a different budget for the CPU, then there are different better options at that different price point. But if you are looking to spend $500 plus on your CPU for your gaming rig, you cannot look past the Ryzen. Seriously, even if you're an Intel fan or something like that, I really encourage you to have a look at Ryzen 5000. I've done a lot of Intel content over the last few days, and I don't want to seem like I am brand biased at all, because I'm not. I've got an AMD editing PC with a 5950X, and I've got an Intel PC as a gaming PC. So, like, I use them both every day, so I'm not biased. The only thing I'm biased to is performance for your dollars. So, anyway, let's have a look. I haven't got any comments yet, which is all good. I can keep going with the components. So we have what is this? This is the Gigabyte Gaming OC 3070. I think it's Gaming OC, isn't it? Yep, Gaming OC. Just want to make sure I'm getting that right. So there's like a non-OC version as well. So, and what that means, if you see OC on it, it means that compared to the reference card, that is the card that to that reference card, it's overclocked from factory. It comes in like that. So you don't have to do anything with it. You could overclock it further, but it comes in factory overclocked from what that reference card is clocked at. But we'll leave the graphics card down here to the side for later. And we've gone with the Aorus B550 Elite V2 motherboard here. So this is a great value motherboard. We do need, I believe we do need a BIOS update on this board. So that's one of the fun things to deal with on this. I think Ryzen 5600X was working pretty good on this board from memory. We had problems with the 5800X in particular on this board, and it was one of the older BIOS numbers. I can't remember what one it was for this board, but we needed to install one of the new ones. So of Aorus 3200 MHz CL16 memory. For our boot drive, we've gone with a Crucial P1 1TB NVMe SSD, and we've also got a 2TB drive there. We've got another RGB fan to go on the back to replace the one that's there. We've also got a Thermaltake TH240 ARGB all-in-one liquid cooler. So that will keep our 5600X nice and chilly. And we're going to be powering it all with a Cooler Master 750 watt 80 plus rated power supply. And as I say all the time, this power supply puts out 62 amps and 750 watts, making this pretty much a true 750 watt power supply. So let's put this stuff to the side here and let's start prepping our motherboard. So I'm flying solo tonight. Christine's working. She doesn't normally work nights like this, but because of Easter and the fact that she works at Coles, she's required to work a bit later tonight. It's a bit of a shame. Hey, if anyone wants SATA cables, just let me know. I've got a massive box of SATA cables, and I've like put them up for sale on the internet and stuff, cheaper than Umart sell them and stuff. No one's buying them. So, just a lot of the time people don't have much use for them these days because they're switching over to NVMe drives. Okay. So I quite like this motherboard. It's just a shame about the BIOS update for 5800, but that is okay. So I'll take you on a quick tour around the motherboard here. I won't hold you up too much on this. So we've got up the top here, we've got a fan header, we've got 8 pins of CPU power, which obviously powers all this stuff around the CPU. So you can kind of think of it, this 8-pin power connector here, 12 volts, powers all of these systems here. So everything around here is associated systems to the CPU. Some of it is the co-processors and stuff that tell the CPU what to do. There's a little chip in here called the CMOS chip, which has the information for the motherboard. There's another one called an arithmetic logic unit, which tells it how to do maths and what maths logic is. And then there's these, what this is referred to as the VRM, or voltage regulation module. So all of these components here, you've got these things called MOSFETs, you've got these chokes and capacitors here. And so these, you can look that up in a bit more detail, because I'm not going to go into it here because it just bogs us down. We don't get anywhere. So over here we've got 2 fan headers here. We've got a CPU fan as well. This is for when you mount coolers that have 2 fans on it. They have nice and convenient access to a fan header. Up here we've got 2 RGB headers. We've got a 5-volt RGB header and a 12-volt RGB header. So the 12-volt has the 4 pins, and the 5-volt looks like it should have 4 pins, but it's missing one. It's also known as a 4-1 pin head. So that is designed so if you have the 12-volt header, you could put it over the 5-volt header over the 12-volt header. So you can't put the 5-volt plug over the 12-volt header. That's why it's designed like that. It's to stop people from mixing them up and destroying their RGB. And so we got 4 DIMM slots here for our memory. So dual channel memory on this board, channel 1 and channel 2. We've got a 24-pin ATX power connector here, so this powers everything else on our motherboard there. We've got a couple of SATA ports here, and we've got another couple over here orientated to the side. Down the bottom here we have our front panel connectors, and we've got one of those little plugs that I love somewhere. Here it is. That just plugs in there, and you plug all your cables in around the back. Turn all those little thin cables into one plug that you can just plug in. This one down here is a USB Type-C front panel connection, so we don't have that on this case, so that one won't be in use. Down here we've got a USB 3, which we will be using. We've got a couple of USB 2s, we've got a trusted platform module there, which we won't be using. We've got another fan header, another 2 RGB headers, an LED header, and down here we have our front panel audio connection. So this is the header that you plug on the front of your case. That's how it communicates with the motherboard. And all this stuff down here is the audio systems. So they always put the audio down this part of the motherboard. It's a standard design, it has been for years. And so the idea is they're trying to keep the audio signals as isolated from EM interference on other parts of the motherboard as possible. So you'll notice that these audio capacitors here, they've got this gold coating on the outside of them there. It's designed to insulate them better than, say, some of these other capacitors where interference isn't really a big deal. These are just sort of just got like kind of like plastic kind of casings around them, whereas these are, if you look at them, they're significantly more reinforced. So you can look all that up. But all this stuff here is the audio, and that's why when we turn around the back, we will always find on your computer, it's always been down the bottom there ever since you can remember, because I've always designed motherboards with this standard ATX form factor. And so around the back here, we've got, obviously, we talked about our audio, so we've got the optical audio out, so it's easy to plug in out like a sound bar or something like that. It's also called the Sony Philips Digital Interface, or SPDIF. Got line outs, and you've got like surround sound ports, so you can hook up your surround sound system. You've got 2.5 gigabit Ethernet on the board, which is great, future-proofed right on the board here with the faster connection. Standard Ethernet is only 1 gigabit, so we can't really make too much use of that in Australia yet, but it's good to have it on the board there. One thing that we don't have on the board though is USB-C, which is a bit of a shame. It'd be good if we had the 2.5 gigabit Ethernet plus the Type-C. But we do have 5 USB 3.2 ports there. We've got a HDMI and display port there, which we won't actually be using in this build. So what we're going to do is we're going to install a couple of little plugs so that anyone who uses this PC realizes that they are not in use. So we'll just plug them up now, and we've got 2 USB 2s there. And that pretty much brings us to the center of the board here. So we've got another 12 volt RGB header there and a fan header. We have 2 M.2 slots, so I do believe that this slot down here, it runs at 2x speed. This slot here runs at 4x speed, because all of these are just PCIe slots, even these two that don't look the same as them. It's the same thing, it's just connected differently, so it's a different interface. So this is an X4, that'll be an X2, and these two here, they're the same length as that, but they're also X4. I can see from the angle that I'm looking at it, I can see how far along the pins are connected at the bottom, and these are only connected to there, which is X4 length. This little one here is an X1. So this top one here, which is where you plug your graphics card into, this is an X16. So it's actually connected all the way along that slot. Whereas these two here, they're only connected to where my fingers are. So the idea with PCIe is if you've got a small connection on something, like say do it without breaking the place. So if you have a graphics, this is a pretty weird graphics card. Usually you'll find a Wi-Fi adapter or USB hub or something like that. We'll have, see, it's only got the X1 connection, so it would plug in to this little one there. But there's nothing stopping you from plugging this one into this big slot here. That's fine as well. It could be plugged into there. You can always plug a smaller PCIe device into a bigger slot, but you can't plug a bigger one into a smaller slot, obviously. So these ones are X4. So if you did have something that was a bigger connection, but you still wanted to use it, you can still use it, but it's going to run at X4 speed, not X16 speed like it would be in the big slot there. And the final thing we haven't talked about is this. This is the chipset. So when we say it's a B550 motherboard, that is the B550 under there. And that is kind of the thing that sort of interfaces all these other systems and communicates in with the motherboard. So this gets quite hot. That's why it's got this big heat sink over the top of it. And that pretty much sums up battery here, which is what gives the board a bit of memory. So when you turn the computer off, it can remember settings, it can remember what CPU's in there, what graphics card, how much RAM's there, what devices are connected to it, so that when you turn it on, it doesn't have to reassess everything that's connected to it like we've just turned on a PC for the first time. Because if you've ever seen me turn on a PC after I've just built it, you might notice that sometimes it takes a little while for it to turn on. So, alrighty, so we've got a couple of comments here. Lucas says, when I get enough money aside, I'll be talking. It says, oh yeah, I've been waiting so long to afford a new PC. This is going to be great. Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to it. It's always a pleasure to build in this case, and it's a great case for airflow and all that. It's going to tick a lot of boxes. Alrighty, so now we've got our AMD CPU, the brains of the operation here. So we've got to be very careful with our AM4 CPUs to make sure there's no bent pins. Even just slightly bent can be a problem. Okay, so when we install our AMD CPUs, there's a little triangle in the socket there, so we just want to line them up. We lift this bar up, obviously, and you just want to line that up. There we go. And it will just drop into the socket, provided that there are no bent pins. And that can be mounted down like that. There we go. So we are all sorted with our CPU there. We don't have a stock cooler to install. I'm not sure what the mounting situation is for that cooler, so I'm going to leave the standard bracket for now. And we'll turn our attention to the memory. RAM, but really, like, its technical name is, well, RAM is the technical name, but RAM is the memory, the actual little chips on the sticks. The sticks themselves are called DIMMs, dual inline memory modules. And so the dual is the fact that it's got this little divide halfway down. It's not having the sticks on both sides, because you can get what's called dual-sided DIMMs or single-sided DIMMs. The fact that it's a DIMM is this little divide in the middle of it. If it was a SIM, or a single inline memory module, which we used to use when I was a kid, those didn't have the divide. So all we do when we install our memory is just line it up in the socket. Nice even pressure on both sides, and it will just clip down into the slot. And so the thing about memory is it's such up here next to the CPU. It's always there because the CPU doesn't work without the memory. It needs very fast access to the memory. In terms of human scales, it has instant access to everything on the memory because it's located right up next to it, so there's very little delay between the signals between them. There is of course delays. There is memory speed and latency and stuff comes into it, but it's very, very quick connection between the CPU and the memory, and that's why they always physically put the memory right next to the CPU. Even on like server motherboards that have more memory, they'll just have memory on both sides of the CPU like that, but it's always very, very closely related to the CPU. And sometimes motherboards will have these fancy, what do you call them? Like LED easy debug lights, they call them. And half the time when you have a problem with the RAM or the memory, that'll show up on, what I should say, the light that'll show up when you have a memory problem will say CPU half the time. It won't even say RAM. And that's because of how closely the CPU and the RAM are. If one's not right, it affects the other one. So even when they try to make an error indicator light, they can't even differentiate between what's causing some of the errors, whether it's a problem with the CPU or the RAM. So yeah, just a few fun facts about memory and like why it's always in the same spot on the board and why it's really important to get it right. And so with this memory, so it's got a rated speed of 3200 megahertz. But of course, you know, if you don't mind the potential risk of, you can run it at higher speeds and stuff like that. You can go and tune it and find out what like the highest stable speed you can do, and you can push it a bit harder anyway. So I find that this stuff here will run pretty well at 3600 megahertz if you just go in there and overclock it. But you know, obviously that is something that you do at your own risk and stuff. It voids warranties and all that. But you know, a lot of people do it, and you know, a lot of people don't have any problems. It's not saying that people won't have problems. It's just understanding the risk, I guess. If you're like, oh man, if I get a bad stick of memory, I'm not really too concerned about that, then it's like, oh, giddy up. Get the best RAM that you can get, even if it's not at the speed that you want, and then just overclock it yourself. Alright. So this is our SSD here, so it's just this tiny little stick NVMe SSDs replacing the old SATA ones. And they communicate through the same system that the graphics card communicates through. So they're much faster than the old SSDs. The old SSDs were limited to like 600 megabytes a second theoretical maximum. So they, even like the best performance ones will only get up to like 560 in like a benchmark test that you would do on it. So these ones here, the limit is usually the generation that it is, and whether you're using some other software with it to speed it up for the tests essentially. But you can get speeds of up to 15 gigabytes a second through that from a high performance one, Gen 4 interface, etc, etc. So alright, so we've got our 1 terabyte SSD, our 32 gigabytes of memory, and we've got our CPU installed. So we can turn our attention to the cooler. So tomorrow we're going to be building another nearly all-white PC. It's going to look very, very similar, but couldn't get a white 3080 for it. So, you know what, well, I think most of you would be aware of how hard it is to get 3080. I sort of get them, but I don't get them like, I don't get them with any regularity, and I've got no idea what the next card I'm going to get is. I can tell you that so I do have in stock, I do have an MSI Gaming X Trio, and I do have another Gigabyte Gaming OC on its way. So if you do want a 3080 rig, it can actually happen. It is a possibility. We can make it happen for you. Okay, so what have we got here? So we have Okay, we've got one of these back plates. We don't have no, there's no capacity for the other bolts. Alright, so that means is we'll have to remove this is sometimes the painful thing with AMD is just having to unscrew those brackets. That's LGA 2011, and they don't give us any easy brackets for, no, that'd be too good to be true, wouldn't it? Looks like I got another spare AMD standard backplate. Alright, well, I know the drill. So for AMD, with this style mounting hardware, we need to remove this bit of sticky here. We need to put down this layer. Very important we get this down because we don't want any metal contacting the motherboard. So we're going to put this on just like that. It just has to sit around the edges. Don't want to cover up. So now I'll take standard mounting kit. So this one here and this one here are generic. You use them for everyone, for every style I should say. Except LGA 2011. But we can probably bin LGA 2011. Too many LGA 2011s. The last one was that EVGA motherboard that Neil sent me up. Well, he sent me up a computer, but the main thing was the motherboard. I got him the EVGA motherboard. He sent me up an MSI one. Alright. So you just want to make sure you get the right holes on these back plates. Alright. Out that there. That looks nice and centered. Okay. So for our cooler, we have to remove this Intel bracket. We need to mount our AMD bracket. Nice and easy. Okay, so this is how we're going to be orientating this. Let's have a look-see. Most probably like that. Okay, so get these fans sorted. What's happening here? But okay. Oh, really? There we go. Okay, so if you get the corners done, it's really easy. You just drop the others in. Okay, let's get our radiator prepped. All right, so use a bit more Arctic silver. Make sure we get a good application on here. We want to remove a bit of sticky. I'm just going to wipe off a bit of excess there. Okay. Meow. Row. I got a cat trying to tell me that it's dinner time. Meow. You're very fat. I know I used to feed you all the time, but that's when you were emaciated. That's when we found you on the street. I know, but see now you're with us for ages now. We cook you roast chickens, okay? How many chickens do you eat a week, mate? About what, 4 or 5 chickens? You're all good. You are all good. No, sorry mate. We've got to keep some consistency in this house, alright? So Christine feeds you, not me. I know it's confusing, I know I used to feed you, but that's when you're emaciated and we're trying to get some weight on you. Now look at you. Dude. Does this seem like an appropriate place to be hanging out? Alrighty, so I've got our radiator and our cooler mounted, so we are all good to go on the motherboard side. So now let's turn our attention to the case. Alrighty. Okay. Such great cable management here. We got an RGB header a little bit bent there. That's okay. Look at this. Wait. Just leave them loose. This one's not even tying anything. Alrighty, we're going to do a much better job at managing those cables. Got some mounting bolts here. Let me just make sure I don't miss the comments. Yeah, no, I got a reason with the cat. That cat's actually like pretty smart for a cat, if you know what I mean. I got another cat and it's really stupid. Like, really stupid. That cat, it's like a dog. You know with dogs, you can see that they're intelligent because you can look at them and they give you this look like you can see that their minds are ticking over. They're thinking something, they're trying to work something out. You don't normally see that from cats, but you do see it from this cat. So I kind of talk to him just like you'd talk to a dog, which is kind of weird, but it's not if you knew the cat, if that makes sense. If you'd seen his behaviour and stuff like that, you'd be like, oh yeah. I'm going to make these comments a bit bigger. I'm sick of squinting at the screen. Yeah, your cat will like smell the PC. Just that one that you've seen. The other one doesn't come up here basically because they don't like each other. Alrighty, so be mounting our power supply face down. Mounting face down is that the power supply won't ever overheat, and so you've heard of CPUs thermal throttling. They get too hot. I've talked about that in my videos before, but you might not understand that with power supplies can also throttle. So if they get too hot, they will start to reduce the amount of power that runs through them. So it's important that they get hot. So a couple of little factors there. So that's one reason why you'd mount it down. Why you wouldn't mount it down is if your case could do with the extra fan for airflow, and if that leads to more fresh air moving through the case, it's going to reduce the temperatures. So it'll probably have a net positive effect on the temperature of the power supply, or not a negative enough effect that it counteracts the positive by having better airflow through the case from balanced fans. So a few things to consider there with power supplies. There's no right or wrong way to do it. More accommodating than others. Some cases are only designed to have the power supply go one way, so you have to consider that sometimes. This case here, it's got the extra holes. You'll see there are extra screw holes here that weren't used. These are the ones for if we had it the other way, and we've got vents on both sides of the power supply, so we can. So what we'll do now, we'll take out this back fan here and we'll install an RGB fan in its place. So what we'll do is we'll lie down the case, and so it's relatively easy now because this is a standard RTX case and it has standard offset pattern, and this board is a standard RTX board with a standard offset pattern. So that means we don't have to move any of the little offsets that's on the case of the motherboard. We're installing a smaller motherboard, normal in some way. We would have to move those offsets, which can be a real pain in the ass. If you've got the right tools, it's fine, but if you don't have the right tools, it can be very, very tedious. It can be one of those things where it's like, if you don't have the right tool, either go buy it or maybe just bring it to me if you're local. I won't charge you like a ridiculous amount to do something simple. If it's too simple, I might not even charge you. He's still opportunistically creeping around, the cat. Okay. So one thing I am going to do quickly now is, where are you? CPU power cable. So always forget about this. There we go. RGB cable. Okay. Oh man, serious? I screwed the fans on the wrong way. Alrighty, what about now? You hear me now? Shit, how long was that? How long was I out for? Yeah, sweet. No, my wireless microphone just went flat. That's what that was, if you're wondering. Okay. Okay. The SATA cable into our hard drive. We are done. Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, 10 minutes without sound, that'd be right. Because, like, I can't be doing everything at once, so... Okay, so, moment of truth. Have I done everything right? Yep, that's looking pretty good. So let's see. Yep. Okay, so we're going to enable our XMP. And then I don't think there's anything else we really need to adjust here. No. Smash this install out. So yeah, we never connect our hard drives to the computer while we're installing Windows like this. And the reason is because of a quirk of the Windows operating system and how it installs itself. By doing it this way, we ensure that all parts of the operating system get stored onto the SSD. If we have a starter device connected, like the hard drive, it will default to drive 0, and it will store certain information on drive 0 by default. This is like core Windows code. But now that we've actually started the install process, we can actually just go and plug it in. And with that plugged in, we can now close the back panel of our case. So my general rule with cable management is if you have to really force it down to close the side panel, you probably haven't done a good enough job. If it's easy just to push it all down, and it's simple, easy, not too hard to pull apart, then it's done well, in my opinion. I might make some slight adjustments to the positioning of the radiator and that back fan. So I might slide that back fan up a bit and slide the radiator down a bit. What do you reckon? I reckon I do that once we've got some stuff going on. Alrighty, so we're going to connect our SSD shortly. And so this has got a heap of software on it. I'm so sorry that we went quiet there for a while. Kind of sucks. Okay. So we never set an administrator password. You can do that when you get your computer, but I never set one. I do on my own computer, of course, but not on customers' computers. Because I don't want them freaking out about some password that's on there that only I know. If it's asking you for a password you don't know, just press enter. Blank password. Okay, this is now in Windows, which will plug in some internet. We don't have USB-C, so we'll swap the adapter over. Okay, let's tidy this up a bit. Okay, let's get some custom desktop icons down to keep our desktop organised. Okay, so we will get Ryzen Master, Blizzard, Chrome, Crystal Disk Info and Crystal Disk Mark, Epic Games, don't worry about Mark. Oh no, I just put it in there. GeForce Experience. Let's make sure Windows updates are definitely going on. Of course. MSI Afterburner. Any of that. Crucial Storage Executive. Okay, let's get our Aorus gear, BIOS, utility, app center, extract all. Go with everything in here. Yes, yes. Yes. Got our graphics card driver installed. Alright, sweet. Got that going on. That was everything from there. Set that date and time. Brisbane. Sync now. We will. Yes. Not that anymore. So we'll set up our hard drive. So we've got a new drive there, a GPT, unallocated, new simple volume. Yep, and we'll go drive letter D. Storage drive. And there it is. Okay, that's sorted. It's downloading, that's downloading. How's Windows updates going? Let's get all these updates, and then I'm going to play around with the cooler a little bit. Okay. done. Righty, is there anything else I need to get going on? Games. Where's Steam? And we'll get Cinebench. Okay. Where we going? Okay. Okay. So that's all going on. Questy on Twitch says, that is a dope build. The only question remaining, is it Linux though? Well, I can always put a Linux partition on a PC. It's not a big deal to set that up. So I never install Linux on customer PCs just because it's a more complicated operating system to use, and like it's just me looking after myself here. I don't want that many support calls, so that's the only reason why I don't do it. And you can install Windows 10 for free these days, so that's alright. Yeah, so we'll just get this BIOS updated and then we're pretty good to go. We can start stress testing and benchmarking. So we're building this one tomorrow night, RTX 3080. Everyone's favourite card that they can't get. And we're doing it all white theme, except the graphics card. Come on. Yay! Okay, now we're back in business. Shouldn't have any more Windows updates now. There's one that seems to be erroring, and there's one that seems to be erroring here as well. That's okay, sometimes there are problems. You get that? Yeah, it's the smart backup again. Alright, so let's see how fast our SSD is. See what those temperatures look like. Let's get our fans tuned. Alrighty. So there's our SSD speeds, so nice and fast. She's getting a little bit warm, isn't she? But it's not getting above that 70-degree mark. Alright, let's get our graphics card fans tuned. Yeah, no issues there. So if you're wondering where a Ryzen 5600 sits in terms of its performance, this is straight out of the box with no overclocking. As you can see, 638 is solid numbers right there. How come it's not showing me? There we go. Alrighty, so there's a Ryzen 5600X, well above the competition. But this is where these sort of numbers here is what you get from the 11400F for $240. So you get that much percentage of that for half the price. So that's pretty good. Multi-core, yeah, it's well ahead. Well ahead. So, what can this thing do? All right, let's do some benchmark. Everything on maximum settings. Okay. There we go. CPU's not doing much work. Frame rate constant. Hey Ezra, yeah, you probably will, just because people will see Windows 10 and they'll be like, oh, it's more modern. Doesn't really, wouldn't say it like adds value as such, just makes it a more enticing prospect to acquire. So no issues with temperatures there. Alrighty, so that was heaven on the highest settings. Let's do to a superposition 4K. Alrighty. Sweet as. Well, it's not really too much else to do other than to start stress testing. Alright, got our hardware monitor open. And get the Cinebench going on. These are the only two values we're really worried about. Graphics card and CPU. And so actually, I've done this right. Preferences. custom minutes at 90-minute test duration. I'm going to go to advanced benchmark. I'm going to go to my custom duration and smash it on all 6 cores and 12 threads. And we want firmark open there as well, displaying on the screen the whole time. Let's just get the that's sorted. There we go. Someone's asked if I can check my PMs. Yeah, I will be. Just about to finish off here, so if anyone has any other questions or whatever, hit me up before I go. Because all we're doing now is make sure those temperatures are all right. Brian's mentioned the case. Well, so Brian, the reason why I go with this case a lot is just because of the value for money that it represents. So for $110, you get a case with 3 ARGB fans in the front. It even has a pre-installed fan on the back, and it even has a reverse fan that you can install on the bottom to blow air up onto the graphics card. It also has an RGB controller, which is just generic 5-volt RGB plugs, and it also has a fan controller, pulse width modulation. And for $109, you can fit a 360mm radiator on the top there. You can fit full-size graphics cards in it. What else has it got going for it? No, that's pretty much it. Plenty of room for cable management on the back there. No, that's pretty much it. When it's like, okay, someone asked me for a quote, and they're like, okay, I've got a budget of this much. I want this, 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 and this. Usually this case is the secret to hitting the number in a lot of cases. Excuse the pun. So, yeah, that's why you'll see me use it a lot. It's not any other reason beyond that. If it didn't tick those boxes, I wouldn't use it. So if we turn it around, bottom panel here, so you can fit a fan on the bottom to draw air through that panel and then up onto the graphics card. So we could fit another fan just there, just to blow air onto the graphics card. That's only if our graphics card was getting hot. And in this case, it's not. I know from building this configuration a couple of times that we're not going to have any heat issues here. This radiator is going to do a good job at keeping our CPU cool. Yeah, there's not really too many other issues. I quite like it. If you don't like the front of it, you can actually remove that plastic bit at the front and just have an open 3. The fundamental thing as well is this case has airflow everywhere. No issues with airflow on this case at all. So, yeah, all in all, it ticks a lot of boxes. Alrighty. Well, if that's everything, I might leave it here for the night, and we'll be back tomorrow building this 3080 PC. So it's going to be another white Lian Li Dynamic 11 case. It's got a heap of fans, it's got a big white cooler that goes with it, so it's going to be great. So be sure to check that one out. Should have some other random content tomorrow as well. A few other bits and pieces that I'll be doing. So yeah, be sure to check that out if you've got nothing better to do on Easter Friday. So, alright everyone,